Mr. President, Commissioners, it's now 11:30.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ada County Highway District Weekly Commission Meeting. As we begin, we'll have some discussion. If there are any questions or concerns about the agenda itself, now's the time for the commissioners to mention them. Anything?
Mr. President?
Yes.
I do have a primary comment. I'm a little bit concerned that our Roadside Memorial Policy update is on the consent, and I'm of two minds on that. With the public outcry and the emotional upheaval that the current policy created, I think we've all put a lot of effort into making appropriate changes. And I think by not having it on the regular agenda and allowing us to state our reasoning, why we did what we did for the record, that we might be just continuing on with some misinterpretation and miscommunication. So I really think that would be a missed opportunity not to do that.
I would probably disagree with you, but it's your right to take it off the consent agenda.
Yeah, no, I know. And that's why I said I wanted to start with a comment about it. And I just think that we did lead some to believe that they would have an opportunity. And I think once it's out there on the record, and I think that will quell a lot of anxiety. And maybe people will show up, maybe they won't. But I think as we've had the discussions here recently about carrying our own message, getting out in front, I think we've made some significant changes for the better. And I just think it would be a missed opportunity not to share that with the public.
You know, I haven't had a single person say that we've been communicating with that have said that they wanted to be here to give any testimony because they were afraid of repercussions from it.
And that may be the case, but then it still does not negate the fact that we will have the opportunity to get it on the record for the public. It's out there. And I think that might, like I say, I think that might quell some any other blowback that we might have. And I think from the email thread that we all received yesterday, there's still some misinterpretation. And
actually, those two individuals absolutely knew better in every aspect and respect and had no reason to say what they did.
Yeah, well, I know that, and you know that, but I think we've done a good thing, and I think as we discussed that it's good to carry this out and make the public aware of what we've done. So that would be my preference, to pull it and defer it 1 week and put it on the regular agenda.
So are you asking for that to happen?
Yes.
Okay, then we will. But let's put it on the regular agenda today.
Yes, sir. Got it. It'll be number 1.
Okay. Anything else? All right, then we'll go ahead and go into the director's report.
Well, Commissioners, good morning. Good to see you all. A couple things to share with you. Today at 3:29, Mayor Simonson is giving his State of the City. It will be over Zoom and over live feeds. If you'd like to, if you haven't seen those announcements, we'll make sure that you have them in your email at the end of today's meeting and such. I know we will be watching to see what goes on, and we'll back brief you on any issues that they may raise for the Ada County Highway District. Speaking of teleses, as you've seen, we have received multiple concerns regarding the fiber contractors' operations, with most recently a teles that stated, and I'd like to read it, TDS, who is the contractor, has installed their fiber optic lines throughout the neighborhood but have left the streets and sidewalks a disgusting mess. Some areas have been patched badly with asphalt or just gravel, but the sidewalk along Ulmer has several areas where the sidewalk has been patched with asphalt instead of concrete. Is this how they are going to leave it? Because it's totally unacceptable. I hope this is all temporary. Well, we've answered that email, but what I'd like to share with you is, as you all know, we've consistently been working all avenues to, I'll call it, help TDS improve their less than stellar record. That being said, I will share with you that TDS is making progress on these issues. As to the most recent citizens' concerns regarding sidewalk repairs, the temporary asphalt, and their temporary asphalt sidewalk repairs will be replaced with concrete, and the temporary asphalt and the roads will be replaced with a permanent patch. As I shared with you last week, the concrete shortage is impacting the timeliness of some of these repairs, but As you know, this is well beyond the contractors and ACHD's control at this point in time. The contractor, TDS, has had and has kicked off the job. Their contractor has been kicked off the job due to ACHD's involvement. So the contractor that's been doing this, who's a subcontractor for TDS, is no longer employed and such. And their permits have been taken over by their sister company, as they are an outstanding
This is a
contractor.
TDS sister company or the
It's the other
Rocky
ones.
contract?
Yeah,
Okay,
the other
good.
ones. As this group, and the term, it's Provost is the new contractor on this part of the operation. They're an outstanding contractor, and they've completed the remedial work of the prior contractor, so they're repairing stuff as they go. They are local, unlike the other ones, and they are doing a very good job across the board. Because of this step in TDA's and TDD's focus on improving this operation, we have allowed them to pull new permits to complete the network in the area they are currently working in. However, KGP Company is the other contractor that is slowly, and I'm on alert, slowly, but surely making progress to remedy the depth of issues they had and their poor repairs. We have not allowed new permits for this. So, Graciela, how you doing? Okay, Mr. President, I believe we're back on.
Thank you. For those of you who are wondering what just happened, we had a technical difficulty with the recording, so we have begun again. That okay, Steve? Thank you.
Okay. In summing up the issue with the fiber, again, the company is making progress. We are watching this very closely. We're working with them, and we'll keep you posted on how this moves
I have a
forward.
question for you, Bruce. Do we have a mechanism for fines if it doesn't get better?
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioners, under the guise of unintended consequences, which I think is probably an understatement on what we just through, we have learned that with the great intention, and they are good intentions, of adding bulb outs to 3rd and Myrtle by CCDC to attempt to slow traffic, this has also impacted the sheriff's operations. Nobody knew this. It appears that the bus that transports those that are currently in jail awaiting court dates can no longer make the turn to the courthouse. We understand that the sheriff's team is taking alternative routes, but these, as we understand it, are not ideal, and I do expect to hear from the acting sheriff in the near future. The lesson here is we need to look more closely at all considerations and impacts such changes may cause going forward. We'll keep you posted. Interesting lesson learned on this one. Chip Seal's soft opening was yesterday, and with all operations that have been on the sidelines for 2 years, we learned a lot on day one and such. Challenges to oil viscosity, composite operations, limited flaggers, just to cite a few, proved great, what I'm going to call post-mission discussions and ideas. And so today will go better, and I am absolutely have the utmost confidence that this will be a very successful chip seal season. As a matter of fact, as soon as we're done, the Chief of Staff and I will be out in the area. But it was a great day yesterday. And we actually do have our first windshield chip on a car complaint that came in today. So with construction and chip seal season in full swing, Commissioners, we are going to see an increase in concerns by citizens that are being inconvenienced by maintenance construction. You've been around, you know it's going to happen across the board. We will continue to work closely with our construction partners to best ensure that road closures, barrels, signage, and detours are kept to a minimum time period, but it is going to happen. It is just going to happen across the board. I want to let you all know that we are working this very, very difficultly, from our construction team members to plans and projects to maintenance to our communications teams across the board. And those teams are doing a great job in publishing our game plan, and we'll continue to push hard to keep the public posted on all operations going forward. But it's going to, with all the construction and chip seal, it's going to upset some of the public. As I shared last week, STAR has asked for a joint session regarding ITD's announcement on continuing construction on Highway 16. Although it is estimated this will take years to finish, it's not going to happen tomorrow. STAR would like to discuss their concerns on the impact of STAR's local roads. I will be contacting the representative after we're done with today's meeting again to set some possible dates that are convenient for all of you and the leadership in STAR in the June timeframe. Of note, as I shared a little bit earlier, we are having a slight coordination challenge with Garden City, which appears to have slowed down in transmitting development applications to ACHD. I am positive that the staffs will have this solved shortly. And finally, as you all have been watching the news across the board, it's interesting to see the today's increases on food prices that have gone up anywhere from 3 to 6%. We should expect that to continue as not only from processing plants that have burned down, hacks into other major manufacturers and such. So we'll keep you posted as it goes forward. And with today's heat index and tomorrow's heat index, we are watching our teammates very closely to ensure that we're not going too fast right out of the gate, that we're taking our time, that we're being careful, and that everybody's watching everybody else's back to make sure we have no unintended issues on operations today. Because today it's going to be 97, tomorrow it's going to be 100 plus. And that's kind of early for June. And like I said, with all the operations going on, we just want to make sure that everybody's safe as we move forward. So commissioners, that is my update. I stand for any questions that you might have.
I have none. Anybody?
President Goldthorpe. Thank you, Director Wong. I just had a question. It doesn't relate to anything that was in the director's report, but I recall back when 389 was being debated, whether or not it was going through, and then we were not sure if the governor was going to sign that. But then it was my recollection that we were going to then circle back, come back, and talk about the implications of that and what we could take. And I just kind of want to see where we are with that. So it's just kind of late in the game to be giving direction to staff as far as our budget prep goes. So are we going to be having a work session?
As far as what we can do to...
Right. We weren't sure just exactly what the implications were, how much we could take.
That's coming here in a week or so,
Yes.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, I thought, it's June now, so
Yeah.
we need to keep moving.
No, we fully flushed this out, and we just blamed.
I knew you were in the process, but I just...
Blame the lawyer.
Okay.
No, that'll be coming to you shortly. Again, I think you'll be very happy with what the opportunities and options are.
Awesome.
For you. And as we said earlier, and I think a commission actually said this, if there's ever a time to look closely at what the opportunities are for the commission regarding funding, this is the time.
Right. And I knew Mr. Price was going to be coming back, so I just kind of lost the bubble on when we were doing that. So thank you. Appreciate it. Look forward to it.
I agree. I noticed this week all the property tax assessments are hitting mailboxes, so
Yep.
we can expect.
Yes, I understand that the assessor has left town, but that's another story.
No forwarding address.
So commissioners, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Thanks. So Kent? So my intent was to have, I guess, Steve stand up and speak to the changes that we've made, so that's clear. And then it's out there, it's on the record, and 'cause I think the perception is we haven't done anything.
Mr. President, Commissioners, it is now 12 o'clock.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our commission meeting. Welcome to the commission meeting. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to
Of the United States.
and to the republic for one nation, under God, indivisible.
Again, welcome, and we'll begin. And I would appreciate a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And we'll go over to the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. And there will be no separate discussion on these items unless a commissioner or citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. All consent agenda items are commission action items unless otherwise noted. And we have had a request for item number 2 to be moved to the regular agenda, and it will be item number 1 on the regular agenda. Do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda with that change?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll go to the regular agenda then. Item number 1 will be as reported on item number 2 on the consent agenda. And for purposes of this particular discussion, I'd like to ask our general counsel if he could come forward for a few moments and explain the process of and decisions with regards to the changes for our roadside memorial policy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Steve Price, ACHD General Counsel. If you recall, this process originally the ACHD Roadside Memorial Policy was adopted, I believe, in 2015, and the policy's been in place and has been working for several time. Earlier this year, we received some comments about the policy that created a genesis for us to look at our policy and make amendments. We've had several meetings on that. And some lots of different input from interested parties. And as a result of that, what you see before you on now the regular agenda is a culmination of all of those amendments. It now creates a process that if people have any complaints about any roadside memorials, that they can appeal to the district. It also makes a change that makes it very clear that ACHD retains absolute discretion to remove any roadside memorial at any time for any reason. It prohibits anybody that any deceased who is directly involved in any criminal activity that caused the traffic accident. It prohibits them from having a roadside memorial placed in their name. If there are multiple decedents in a traffic accident, that it requires consent from the family members of all the others who were fatally injured to put the sign up. It also changes the cost burden so that now the person or family who's requesting to have a roadside memorial, that they will have to pay an administration fee as well as the actual cost of the sign. It also prohibits any roadside memorials to be included on any ACHD project that receive federal funding. This is a requirement of federal law. It also recognizes that Idaho authorizes roadside memorials, the state of Idaho does. And I believe that's about a summary of the changes that were made.
Okay.
And I'm happy to stand for any questions. I feel like we've talked quite a bit about this, and you're fully versed in everything. We've received a lot of input from commissioners in the past, and we've incorporated those changes. So,
Mr. President?
Yes.
I just would like to thank Mr. Price for his hard work on this. It's taken a while. I did want it stated for the record so that the public is aware that we have been putting a lot of thought and time into these revisions and amendments. And I'm pleased with the final product. And I appreciate you putting that on the record today for us, Mr. Price.
you bet.
Yes, other than a few housekeeping items on the old policy, the new policy is a direct reflection on what the public has requested or demanded or otherwise asked for. Thank you. Yes.
Mr. President,
Yes.
just by way of comment, I'm inclined to agree that this policy is better than what we had previously. I think the old policy became a victim of what's already been mentioned, the law of unintended consequences. And I think this new policy, sadly, I think is destined someday to have the same trouble. Not because we're not doing our best, not because I don't think we've tried to cover the bases, but simply because there are things that are unforeseen, things that we haven't thought of that could come up. And it's for that reason that I'm inclined to just say that, and this is my opinion, but I've said it before, that I don't think ACHD should be in the business of putting up memorials. So even though I think this policy is well intended, I'm inclined against having this policy. I would prefer to have really no policy at all regarding, or at least a policy against roadside memorials of any kind. That's my position, and it's not because I don't have sympathy for those who have lost loved ones in accidents and so on. Simply that I think we should not be in the business of doing roadside memorials, and that's my position on this.
Are there any other comments or questions?
No, Mr. Chairman, I really appreciate the hard work that's gone into this. We've learned a lot, and it's my view that no policy actually is a policy, and we will rue the day if that happens. So I appreciate the improvements that have been made, and with the input from the public and from commissioners.
Graciela, is there anyone from the public that has asked to testify on this? All right. Then the matter is properly before the commission, and I would ask for a motion to approve the roadside memorial policy update.
So moved, Mr. President.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
The motion carries. Thank you very much. That's it for the regular agenda. On our public communications, has anyone indicated a desire to speak to us? Graciela, anyone here? Then I will declare this meeting adjourned, and we'll prepare for work session number 1. Are we ready?
I don't
No.
see my presentation up.
There goes Ken.
Here we go.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Megan Merkley, ACHD student intern for Planning and Projects, and I would like to thank you for the opportunity to present the 2020 ACHD ADA Annual Report. As this is my first time presenting to you, I would like to introduce myself and my background. I am currently attending CWI for my postgraduate certification in Geographic Information Systems, which is not only layering complementary skill sets on top of my Bachelor's of Business Development in Culinary Management, but also repaving my career path. I received my internship with Planning and Programming Department 8 months ago, this upcoming Friday, and have enjoyed the collaboration with staff, learning process, and the opportunity to complete projects like this one, which has brought me in front of you all today. In today's work session, we will provide a brief overview of the ADA transition plan and summary of the 2020 ACHD ADA annual report. We are here in front of the Commission today to present a summary of the completed curb ramp, sidewalk, and pedestrian push-button projects that were newly implemented or repaired by both ACHD and private development in 2020. The full report can be found in your memo packets. As a review, the Americans with Disability Act, or ADA, enacted in 1990, is one of America's most comprehensive pieces of civil rights legislation that guarantees that people with disabilities have the same opportunities as everyone else to participate in the mainstream of American life. To address federal pedestrian planning guidelines and the regulatory requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act, ACHD adopted the Pedestrian Bicycle Transition Plan in 2005. The Pedestrian Bicycle Transition Plan was the first transition plan adopted in the state of Idaho, and since its adoption, ACHD has continued working to meet the standards and report improvement through ADA annual reports. In 2019, ACHD completed an update to its ADA transition plan. Legal staff are currently working with a consultant to audit ADA compliance with ACHD operations, to be completed next month. In addition, to continue ACHD's commitment to report progress and address ADA non-compliant facilities, staff have also prepared the 2020 ADA annual report. Excuse me. The 2020 ACHD ADA annual report reflects the updates to the pedestrian facilities of Ada County with efforts from both ACHD and private developers. The report includes tables listing repairs completed on sidewalk and curb ramp deficiencies, as well as new sidewalks, curb ramps, and push buttons implemented in 2020. In addition, in the report, you will find a 2-year summary of progress made to the pedestrian facilities, as of 2020. The 2020 ADA annual report was created utilizing the GIS data collected and updated regularly by ACHD GIS staff for sidewalks, curb ramps, and push buttons. The data consists of completed projects, building permits, sidewalks, and curb ramp repairs, signal upgrades, and private development work. This data is constantly being collected in coordination with different ACHD departments, including ACHD ADA coordinator, project managers, development and technical service staff, and maintenance staff. In 2020, ACHD repaired 41.5 sidewalk miles, ranked using the criteria established in the 2019 ADA transition plan with a high, medium, or low deficiency, and repaired 118 curb ramps ranked in 2018 with a high, medium, or low deficiency. ACHD added 6.3 new sidewalk miles and 666 new curb ramps, with private development completing an additional 23.3 new sidewalk miles and an additional 443 new curb ramps during 2020. Additionally, 24 accessible pedestrian signals were installed by ACHD in 2020. As part of the 2020 reassessment, ACHD completed inventory and ranking updates for existing diagonal curb ramps and pedestrian push-button signals in Ada County. A total of 6,338 diagonal curb ramps were inventoried and ranked, with 516 as high, 995 as medium, 2,120 as low, and 2,707 as having no deficiencies identified, meaning they comply with best practices. A total of 2,224 pedestrian signals were inventoried and ranked, with 859 as high, 401 as medium, 487 as low, and 477 as no deficiencies identified, meaning they comply with best practices. As a result of this assessment, the countywide ADA inventory was updated. With the combined efforts of ACHD and private developers in 2020, Ada County had 63.8% of ADA compliant sidewalk miles and 57.8% of ADA compliant curb ramps. Additionally, with the 24 installed pedestrian signals by ACHD in 2020, 21.4% of all pedestrian signals in Ada County are ADA compliant. ACHD staff will continually update this data annually, committed to improving accessibility for people of all abilities throughout Ada County. Thank you, and with this I conclude my presentation and will now stand for any questions.
I have one, Megan. That is that, do you have any idea what the timetable is for bringing that 21.4% up to 100?
I do not.
Okay, just checking.
I do not. It's ongoing.
And I don't know if anybody's told you this about me, but the first time someone gives a report to the, you can ask someone on the, over there's table what that means.
Okay, thank you.
I give you a 10.
Thank you.
I'll
take it.
I use the Olympic swimming scoring.
The Olympic
Formula.
swimming.
He's a Russian judge.
Russian.
I'll have to defer to others for that.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Yeah, and Megan, thank you. This is terrific. We were here earlier on. There's a number of years ago when advocates really asked for not just sort of the legal compliance, but let's collect the data. And so it was like, well, that's kind of a no-brainer. Let's put that as part of our transition plan. And so it's so cool to see this progress, because now we have data. It's hard to make changes without data. And so I want to just kudos to the advocacy folks out there. They're the eyes and ears on the ground, you know that, because they can see examples of, wow, every single crossing is perfect except one, the one critical one to get me to where I want to go. And then the data and so I would encourage us to share this with the business community, with the chamber, if we can give a report to the chamber or somehow pass this on, because what I'm seeing, certainly in the area I represent, is that as more people are coming out after the pandemic, there's more and more of us of limited mobility. And I mean, that's the key. It's not like they suddenly arrived. It's just that they didn't have access to places. And so their mobility was to have to get into an accessible van or a vehicle of some sort and then get driven somewhere, even though it might be only a few blocks away. And so I think you're seeing more and more people of limited mobility safely being able to go to places in their neighborhood that everybody else can walk to. And so it's really great. And so I really share this so that businesses know, hey, we're doing this for you because these are your customers. And this is one of the reasons we're doing this. And so this is what some of your investment is returning. So thanks.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Mr. President,
Yes.
well done. I too will give you a 10.
Thank you.
Nice job. It's good to have this data.
Thank you.
Mr. President, if I may. Megan, thank you for the presentation. I agree. Well done. Let me ask one question, and I think I know the answer, but I just want to make sure this is clear. As we look at those different categories of high, medium, and low,
Yes.
when we're evaluating the curb ramps and pedestrians and sidewalks and so on, in your report, in the total ADA report here, it talks about those as representing high priority, medium priority, and low priority. But then on the other hand, it talks about deficiencies, and so it appears pretty clear to me. I just want to make sure that this is clear for everyone, that when we talk about high, medium, and low priority, we're talking really that's indicating current condition, meaning if it has a high priority, it's furthest from compliant condition. Low priority means it's closer to compliant condition. Is that an accurate assessment?
That would be accurate.
Okay,
yes.
good, because I think that's helpful to make sure that we view it in that way. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Then we will go to item number 2 for our, and away we go. Thanks for being here, Tom.
Thank you. All right. Hello, President Goldthorpe, members of the Commission. For the record, my name is Tom Laws, ACHD Planning Supervisor, and today I'm going to be presenting an informational briefing on the potential for Garrett Street to have bike lanes and the outreach summary that we completed in concert with the City of Garden City. I'll divide this presentation up into 4 different sections: a project overview, the summary of that outreach, and then ACHD and Garden City staff recommendation, and then finally next steps. Just to provide a quick glimpse of what we're talking about, we're looking at Garrett Street roughly between Chinden Boulevard and Marigold. This section is a 2-lane residential collector, a 25 miles per hour posted speed limit. The land use on both sides is residential, and there's sidewalks on both sides, most recently with an ACHD project in 2017 to complete the sidewalk gaps on the west side, and the road width is roughly 40 feet. For public involvement, we completed a little over 2-week online survey between March 30th and April 16th. Through this process, we received 242 public comments, specifically with 10 from adjacent property owners. And this outreach effort included postcards, social media, sandwich boards, and then canvassing of those adjacent property owners between both ACHD staff and Garden City staff. From the outreach, I'll just provide a few of the main themes that we saw. First off, asking how did people primarily use Garrett Street with this connection? And the majority either said they live nearby or they commute to and from work, use it for accessing shopping or running errands or recreation, which just north of this, Garrett Street turns into several access points to the Greenbelt, and so that's what we're interpreting as that recreation component there. Looking at all the responses, so in order to add the proposed bike lanes on the section of Garrett Street, it would require removing parking on one side. And so we had specific questions that targeted not only would they support the bike lanes, but would they support removing on-street parking, and if so, which side? In this case, overall, we saw roughly 83% in support, or 199 overall, with 10 that were not sure and 33 that disagreed. When we targeted specifically on those 10 residents that live adjacent to Garrett Street, 6 were in support of the bike lanes, 1 was not sure, and 3 disagreed. Going back to those themes, so really what we heard, in addition to the need and desire for those bike lanes, were that Garrett Street with this section is primarily seen as a cut through between Chinden and Glenwood, in addition to Marigold. And then there was the sentiments that these bike lanes are needed to increase the safety for those residents that are coming from the West Boise Bench down to the Garden City Greenbelt. And then there are also some parking concerns. So the parking was already viewed as crowded, and primarily that the apartment complexes needed more for their visitors. Additional themes that we saw were that increased safe connectivity from the bench to the Greenbelt, as I mentioned, that there were concerns about the intersection specifically of Chinden and Garrett Street. There were some visibility issues, and then that cut through traffic speeding, both on Garrett and then on Marigold. So sitting down with Garden City and reviewing these results, ACHD staff and Garden City staff came up with the proposed recommendation. This includes adding or striping for 2 10-foot vehicular travel lanes, 2 6-foot bike lanes, 1 7-foot parking strip on the east side of Garrett Street, and then removing the parking on the west side of Garrett. And then in addition to this, to alleviate some of those parking concerns, we would allow parking on Thurman Drive. And just to highlight this with this map, so currently on the west side of Garrett Street in red, we currently do not allow parking. And so really what we're looking at is removing roughly 12 spaces in that yellow section in the north side of Garrett between Thurman and Marigold. And then in addition to this, we'll be adding parking again to that Thurman Drive section directly adjacent to the apartment on both sides, apartment complex, which would be adding roughly 24 spaces. So we really view this as a win-win. We're able to meet the desire and the request from the city of Garden City to add these bike lanes while adding increased capacity for on-street parking in the area. So in conclusion, this is just an informational briefing today. ACHD staff will come back next week for a public hearing and to look for a recommendation from the commission in terms of our current proposed recommendation. And if this treatment is approved, then we'll work with the traffic department for implementation later this fall. That concludes my presentation, and I'll stand for any questions.
I have one, Tom. What's been the feedback we've received from our advisory groups?
President Gorthorpe, members of the commission, this was actually, I believe it was the second rated project that the BAC recommended in their integrated 5-year work plan to be moved up and completed faster. So this is one critical connection that they really see in helping those residents get from the bench down to the Greenbelt and to Garden City.
Thank you. Any other questions for Tom?
Just a couple questions. I was just, the obvious one is you're crossing an ITD facility, and how will the design work or discussions be about improving the crossing? Because it's like we could have really safe on one side, really safe on the other, but if it's too dangerous, it's not used.
Mr. President, Commissioner Hanson, so in this case, we actually have existing bike lanes on both Mountain View to the, I guess, the south, and
Right.
then this section of Garrett on that ITD facility. And so in this case, we wouldn't be proposing making any changes to the on-street facilities.
Is it a safe facility? I mean, we just finished doing an evaluation of ADA facilities. We know there are facilities, but do we know that they're safe enough to use for people to cross? Is it a level 1, 2, or 3 on Maple Grove coming down, or Mountain View and then crossing? Do we know what that is?
Mr. President, Commissioner Hanson, in this case, we looked at the draft criteria for level of traffic stress with the segment, and we'd be going roughly from a level of traffic stress 3 down to a 1 with this proposal, but have not looked into the intersection itself at this point.
Okay. My last question is, when we remove parking, obviously parking does play a function of speed management, because it narrows the width and provides some vertical. It also sometimes hides people, so people who are driving too fast. This is a wide segment. What are we doing or are we going to be incorporating some sort of speed management in here? If we give people a broad, drivers a wide view, if the bike lane at that point isn't occupied, to exceed the speed limit, will this become an area? Or are there some features we can add that make sure that this doesn't become a chronic area for speeding, since it is a very commonly used cut through down Marigold to Glenwood?
Mr. President, Commissioner Hanson, I think we can absolutely look into that. Garden City staff view was restriping those lanes to be 10 foot would essentially help with that traffic calming, but there definitely could be opportunities for other infrastructure.
So I would encourage you to take a look at what we have proposed on Maple Grove over by the elementary school, which is some vertical elements, because vertical elements help to drivers to focus. Paint doesn't. They sometimes just see it as, well, there's no one in that lane. I can just drive as fast as I can, or it's not conscious. It's just like, oh, look, it's a wide open spot, but they're driving through a neighborhood. So I would encourage us, if we're applying this in other places, that let's look at some vertical protection and some design features we can incorporate into this at the outset, rather than later on after we've had chronic speeding in that segment. Thanks. Those are all my concerns.
Thanks, Jim. Anything else from any of the other commission?
Yeah, Mr. President, if I
Yes.
may. Tom, thank you for the presentation. I wonder if we could go back to that aerial photo for a moment. I just want to make sure I have yeah, there we go. Just a correct understanding of what's going on. So currently, there's no parking allowed on the west side, but parking is allowed on the east side of Garrett Street. Is that correct? In that red area?
Mr. President, Commissioner McKinney, that's correct, yes.
Okay. And what about the east side of Garrett Street through there? Is parking allowed there, and are we proposing no change as far as that is concerned?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So the east side won't change and parking is allowed. And now it looks like we have a number of driveways that front onto Garrett Street on the east side. But we don't have driveways along the west side. It's all apartment buildings. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so but the only portion of Garrett Street where parking is currently allowed that we're proposing to change is there on that north section on the west side. Mm-hmm. And then is currently parking not allowed on Thurman Drive, and we're planning to change that and allow parking. And what's the process? Are there no parking signs that are there now and they're simply going to be taken away?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, all right. And so the general, so no changes is intended for the east side. So all of those homes with driveways on the east side of Garrett Street, their parking situation won't change at all, even though are the bike lanes currently striped through there?
Mr. President, Commissioner McKinney, no, they're not.
They're not, okay. So we're going to be adding striping for bike lanes, and I assume the parking is further from the center line of the roadway than the bike lane. Is that correct? So cars that are going to park on the side of the street on the east side will cross the bike lane, and the bike lane will act as kind of a buffer between parked vehicles and the travel lane. Is that correct? On the east side?
Mr. President, Commissioner McKinney, if you look at it over a cross-section, we'd have the northbound travel lane, the northbound bike lane, and then the parking facility.
Okay, all right, right, okay. All right, good. Yeah, thank you. That's all my questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Tom. All right, and we're through with the 2 work sessions, and therefore the meeting is totally adjourned.
Thank you.